Welcome, NCFREE. This is Anna Bevan Gravely, and I'm here with Don Pomeroy, who's running in House District 104. So Don, before we get started, is there anything that you want to share with us?
Oh, sure. Well, first, Anna, thanks for having me here today. I appreciate that very much. And thanks for your ingenuity, too, in this time of kind of unprecedented situation. I applaud you for your creativity in finding ways to get your members and supporters access to the candidates, because it's very hard to do right now. One thing I'll start with is, as a first-time candidate, I get asked quite a bit, why did you decide to run for office? And the answer is really pretty simple, but I'll share just a quick little story with you. So you might be able to tell from my accent that I grew up in a different part of the country. And where I grew up in the mid-1900s, the nearby large city was the 15th largest city in the country. They had a great economy, very prosperous. It was a destination location for people to move their families, to find a job, buy a house with the white picket fence, and achieve their slice of the American dream. Great schools, the whole thing. But what happened is, in the late 1900s, coming into the 2000s, that all changed. And what was the 15th largest city in the country is now the 83rd largest city in the country. And it's seeing a net migration of people outbound. And why did that happen? Well, it happened due to Democrat economics and high taxes, high cost business environment, an overall view that everyone could stick their finger into the economic pie and somehow the pie would always replenish itself. And so these things just over time created a destructive economy that caused everything in that region to decrease. Furloughs turned into layoffs, and I watched this as a kid and as a college student, where the furloughs turned into layoffs, layoffs turned into plant closures, and businesses were leaving that environment. Well, why do I share that little story? Well, Charlotte today is the 16th largest city in the country. So similar. North Carolina is the 9th largest state, and North Carolina, according to Forbes magazine, has had the #1 business environment 3 years running now, which is just a fantastic thing. Well, I want to see that continue. I want to see that prosperity continue. I want to see the environment and the policies continue that help make that happen, so that North Carolina and Charlotte remain destination locations where people can come, put down roots, find a job, and build their slice of the American dream. And I never want that to be taken away. I've seen it happen, and I don't want it to happen here. So I decided it was time to jump in the game and to run for office, to go to Raleigh, to represent the people of South Charlotte and North Carolina, to make sure that we always have a favorable climate where everyone can achieve the American dream that wants to.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I'll dive right into the questions. The first one is, have you ever owned a business or been in a management position within a business?
So yes, primarily to the second question. So my last position was as Chief Financial Officer for SureTape Technologies.
Okay.
And SureTape is the manufacturer, you may know it, of the original Duck brand duct tape. So they're the ones that made duct tape famous. And they also manufacture frog tape, painting tapes, and other blue and beige masking and painting tapes, and duck packaging tape, and the whole gamut. They're the #2 manufacturer of pressure sensitive tapes in North America. And so I was there for about 6 years and helped as part of the C-suite running that company. Prior to that, I spent about 17 and a half years with a group of companies that are today known as Enpro Industries, Inc., and that's headquartered in Charlotte. That's a publicly traded company, and both Enpro and SureTape are two of the largest manufacturing businesses in the state. And at Enpro, I was the Chief Accounting Officer, Vice President, and Corporate Controller, but over the 17 years, I had a lot of different roles that touched on operations, sales, marketing, pricing, you name it. And prior to that, I started out my career 6 years at Coopers & Lybrand, which today would be PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the big CPA firms. And I was formerly a CPA there, and was a step away from being a partner when I decided to exit. And that's when I ended up with what became Enpro. So I kind of had 3 major stops in my career, the most recent ones being in the senior management of 2 pretty large North Carolina enterprises.
Yeah. Just a sidebar really fast. My brother is a huge duct tape fan.
Okay.
He was
Great.
like I don't know, 11, he built a swimming pool out of duct tape. It was
Okay,
really
sure.
hot. Yeah. So he loves duct tape. So, man.
Oh, he should submit his story to the company. They love to hear things like that. They have great stories
I
of
bet they do. Gosh,
helping people out. Yeah.
man. Awesome. Okay. So what would you say is the current level, or what would you say the current level of federal and state taxation on businesses? Do you think it's too high, too low, just about right?
Yeah. So I'll focus more on state since I'm running for a state office, but my answer on the federal side would be very similar.
Mhm.
With the state's income tax rate at 2.5%, and that collects a little over 700 million a year, and franchise taxes bring in about the same amount. I applaud the legislature for everything they've done the last 8 to 10 years to bring the rates down. I think there's still more room to go. And the reason I say that is corporations don't really pay taxes. There are plenty of studies out there that say that it's just another cost for a corporation. And so really, taxes are paid by people. And when you think of the people inside of a corporation, it's really the employees who are chipping in, because that's less money that owners can use to comp their employees, and lower returns for shareholders. So it's really employees and shareholders who are splitting that burden in the end. So if we could bring that rate down to zero, especially on the income tax side, but I would advocate to explore that on the franchise tax side as well, there would be more money inside the corporation, both for internal investment, for employee compensation, and for shareholder return, all of which are positive things. The other thing I think it does too, by bringing the income tax rates down, is it eliminates the need or the desire for special interests or certain corporations to be lobbying for special tax breaks and for special treatment. If there's no income tax to pay, then there's nothing to lobby to get special treatment for. So I would like to see it brought down to eliminate that as well. So we had a level playing field where every entrepreneur, every innovator, every existing business has an equal chance to succeed without having to worry about tax burdens and therefore then trying to lobby for special treatment or special consideration for their company or their industry. Lastly, too, taxes diminish economic activity, or they diminish the activity that's being taxed. I think in North Carolina's case, we should be encouraging innovation, entrepreneurship, earnings, and profits. Those aren't dirty words to be said. Those are good things, and they help drive the economy here. And so to the extent we tax it, we discourage it. And so I think, again, if we bring those rates down, then we're helping to encourage people to be innovative and to prosper from the fruits of their labor. And I think these are all good things.
Yeah, I think you touched on a little bit, but I'm just going to ask you for this question anyway. Do you
Sure.
feel it is appropriate for state or local government to offer incentives to private businesses in consideration of locating, expanding, or conducting business in a specific location of the state?
Yeah, so in my experience, one of the best or the best economic incentive is a zero or a low tax rate. And there's no question corporations look at that when they're trying to make investment decisions, or especially if they're trying to figure out where to relocate or open a new plant. It comes up in the formulas. I've done it before, and I'll talk about that in a second. The other things that would go along with that, pardon me, are the availability of skilled workers, the quality of the educational institutions and having good schools, a reasonable cost business environment overall, which somewhat comes back to regulation that ultimately too, and then a high quality place to live. And when you combine those things together, that's where businesses want to be. Everybody wants to be there. So from the state's perspective, the thing that I think they can work on is, especially on the tax policy side, eliminating the need for economic incentives by having a very, very low cost structure. And I'll give you just a couple quick examples. So one part of the country I lived in, I did a $40, $50 million plant revitalization project. It was a very old plant where we needed to modernize and bring it up to state of the art instead of kind of World War II-ish era buildings and equipment. And we looked at the possibility of having to relocate to another state. So the state we were in knew that they were a high-cost, high-tax state. So they gave us several million dollars worth of incentives to get us to stay. And it did help get that project over a hurdle so that it could stay in that state. But it was kind of a terrible thing to see, frankly, the state having to give out that level of incentive, again, knowing that they were disadvantaged compared to other more competitive locations. And I'm still not convinced, that was a great outcome overall, financially for that state. Excuse me. The other thing I've seen too is right here in North Carolina, where working for, particular business here, we had a competitor move into the state and get between $1 million and $2 million from North Carolina, a particular county in North Carolina. And, I know lots of people do it. I sat back and said, hey, wait a minute, what about us? We've been here for years, an established business, and here a competitor wants to move to town and they're getting grants and other assistance. This situation just wouldn't be necessary if the best economic development incentives were already in place. And again, that would be the low tax rates and the, favorable overall business climate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great story. Great example. Thank you. Describe your personal opinion as to what the key principles of free enterprise in our economic system are.
So I grew up studying the likes of Adam Smith and John Locke and, von Mises and Hayek and Milton Friedman. So, pardon me, these economists had a big influence on me. So they're kind of my definition of what free enterprise and free trade and all should look like, is everything that they've espoused over time. And so, but I think today, the one thing we need to add to that is the word fair. So I think we need to have free enterprise and fair enterprise and fair trade. And this happens more so at the federal level where trade treaties are negotiated and whatnot, but at the state level, to the extent we can make sure we have fair trade as well, and that no one has advantages, artificial advantages or regulatory advantages over another, is one way to make sure that we're fulfilling those free enterprise concepts. We see it today more so on an international basis where some are willing to manipulate their currencies or have tariffs, on one side of the equation, but not on the other. And I think that's very unfair. We see some detrimental impacts in the last generation or so of that in the US. And I think we should eliminate that. But again, it's more at the federal level. So at the state level, I think we need to do everything possible to have free and fair enterprise.
Yeah. So this next question is actually pretty timely when we talk about the reality of our situation and having conversations on a federal level and a state level on trying to solve problems and innovate around the coronavirus and this global pandemic. So in your opinion, what is the appropriate balance in the scope of federal and state regulatory requirements on business? What, in your opinion, is the best way to balance the appropriate protections without impugning economic vitality?
Yeah, so this is, I think, a great question, because that balancing act is always a tricky one. And I guess during my whole career, I've come to the conclusion that we want to have the most modest regulations possible. But I know what I've seen over the last 30 plus years is a tendency to sometimes use regulation as a way to curb or attempt to curb bad behavior. So, I'll just use that Enron example in what must have been 2000, 2001, 2002 timeframe, I guess. And I think I have that right, whenever that occurred. And,
I wasn't voting yet, so I trust you.
Okay. And you saw a variety of regulations put in place to try to curb the bad behavior, prevent the bad behavior from ever happening again. The problem is we always see bad actors will be bad actors, and you can put every regulation in place that you want, and you're still not going to stop bad actors from popping up every once in a while. So the difficulty you then have, or what I found, is being at a company that was incredibly ethical, or at least attempted to be every day, and tried to always take the high road and be open about everything, is we were the ones, the law-abiding, the ethical, were the ones paying the price for the bad behavior of the troublemakers. And so I never saw where the regulation in that case was helping a lot, because the law-abiding would never think of doing what the bad actors would do. So we certainly need to have rules and regulations and ramifications in place for those who would, color outside the lines in a negative way. But I think we have to be very careful about overburdening law-abiding, ethical business people and entrepreneurs, so that we're not crimping their capabilities and limiting them in any way. And that's a difficult balance. But I think we have plenty of laws on the books today to deal with the bad actors. I think we have to be careful about also putting a thumb on the good people that are out there trying to do the right thing every day.
Yeah, yeah. So, Don, if elected, what will be your top 3 priorities as it pertains to the business community?
So as we've talked about today, obviously the economy, the business environment would be number one. It's really my kind of number one reason for running, is to take everything I've learned in my business career, traveling around the world. I've been in socialist countries or soft socialist countries. I've been in communist countries, and I've been in capitalist countries, and this is still the top of those. And I've kidded around a lot of times that there were times when I landed back at the airport in the United States here, and I wanted to climb out of the plane and kiss the jet fuel stained tarmac to be back here in the United States, because this is still the best place to be, warts and all.
Yeah.
This is the best country to be in. And so I've seen these other places and have a pretty long career at this point, and I wanted to take that experience, and to the extent that can be of service to the people in my district and the people in North Carolina, I wanted to offer that up to serve in Raleigh and to use those experiences to help, again, keep North Carolina as a destination where people can achieve the American dream. But knowing, especially as we've learned here in the last few weeks, that everything is an ecosystem and everything's connected. 2 other big things I would focus on is education, partly because it's the number one spending area in the state budget by far. And secondly, because without that influx of newly trained people to come into the workforce, you end up hitting roadblock. The other thing I get, or I'm thoughtful about and want to see, is to the extent we can encourage lifelong learning, is to add that to the mix as well. So not just K through the university system, but encouraging lifelong learning, so we don't have people who are mid-career or maybe a little past mid-career suddenly finding themselves on the outs because they haven't kept up skill-wise, and the world now skill set wise and technology wise moves very fast, very hard to leverage one set of skills for your whole career these days. So I want to make sure everybody kind of K through lifetime is encouraged to keep up their learning and has opportunities to do that, whether it's through the community college system, the university system, getting their GED, whatever the case might be, so that everyone can be productive and access that economy. And then last but not least would be all the things that enhance their quality of life. So public safety, our transportation needs as one of the fastest growing cities and states in the country, our access to outdoor facilities so we can renew ourselves and enjoy all the beautiful sunshine and Carolina blue skies that we have. I want to add that to the mix also. So really be those 3 priorities: the economy, education, and our quality of life.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
Thanks,
and getting the chance to learn more about you. Where can our NC-FREE community and members go to find more information about you?
So the website, and I kid around, it's the soon-to-be famous website, donpomeroy.com, is where you can find more information about me. And my contact information is there too. So if you want to email me at don@donpomeroy.com, it's there. If you want to call me, my phone number is 585-200-2626, but it's on the website. I encourage anybody to call me anytime. If I don't pick up because I'm tied up, please leave a message. I'll get back to you. But those are 2 ways. At Facebook, we're posting updates periodically so you can see what's happening with the campaign. And if you look for Elect Don Pomeroy or at Elect Don Pomeroy, you'll find the Facebook page and those updates. And I think that's probably it: email, phone, website, Facebook. So if you
that's everything,
want to tap in, you should be able to find me somewhere. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you have a lovely rest of the day.
Well, thanks, Anna. You too. Thank you very much. Again, kudos on your originality and creativity with this.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.